This clip is from my sit down with a very knowledgeable diehard Leafs fan. We sit down and go head to head on all things Montreal and all things Toronto, going through all their recent moves for both teams and talking about how we think these two teams match up against each other with their updated rosters. This video is brought to you by High Button Sports, Atlantic Canada's leading sports entertainment company, with a podcast, mic'd up videos, live streaming, and much more. Make sure to check them out at hightbuttonsports.ca. They talked about it on Free Agent Frenzy Day recently, the John Tavares signing. We may as well just talk about it. And I don't know if you saw Craig Button's little thing with Kolyakovo.
I've seen that.
And I've literally said that exact same thing that Button did to you a couple of years ago. I still believe it, that the John Tavares signing wasn't necessary when you have Matthews, a generational center, coming in, Kadri behind him, who's a very respectable second-line center defensively and offensively. He plays with grit. And it's not that, and it really isn't that John Tavares isn't a great player, and to bring in a guy like that you'd pay him, but you didn't have to trade for him or anything like that, A big win at the time, it seemed. But really, for me, the way I looked at it is, why would you pay a free agent $11 million right before all of your young guys are looking for money? And Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and then in the first contract negotiation with Nylander, you kind of let him call your bluff. And then he ends up getting signed before the season starts. And then Marner and Matthews have their way with Dubas as well. And the contracts that have since been signed don't really look that good in a hard salary cap.
The thing that scares me with the Matthews deal is where it takes him right to free agency.
Yeah.
And he might walk, go home, whatever it may be. The one thing with the Maple Leafs, and it's like, I think people understand it, but I think it gets kind of like swept on the rug. None of these guys are bad contracts that you can't move them. I think that gets lost. Because, you look at Tampa Bay, they said the Tyler Johnson on waivers. Alex Killorn's making 4 point something. Yanni Gord's making 4 point something. Great players. But these guys now, it's kind of like, you see Tampa right now, they're still having to move people out. The Leafs, I think, signed Tavares, maybe so. But at the time, I don't think anybody knew Kadri would be a number 2 center on a legitimate cup contending team. And even so in Colorado, had a hell of a year last year in Colorado. Yeah. But I think if he has more wingers to support him, I love Nas. I loved him a lot.
I recall him at least for a portion of a season. I think it was the season before he was traded, or maybe even the season before. He was starting to get mentioned in Selke talks. It never happened where he was raised up in the votes, but I don't know if it was the Toronto media just overhyping him.
It was one of those things where the media really ran with it, where Babcock said something amongst the lines, or if I give Nazem a task, he goes after it.
Right.
So when I put him out there against his top line, I tell him, this is your task, and I want you to dominate, because he felt like he had a role to play. Like I said, at the time, if Barry works out, I don't know if we're having this discussion.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And we're acting like Kerfoot, when they talk about that trade, isn't a good player. He's not a great player. Right. He's not a superstar. He fits the third line profile.
Player that you would have had to pay up for.
Yeah. So, and I think at the end of the day, too, is your top 2 center making that much money is whatever. If you do make a trade, and it is Marner for Nylander, you're going to open. There's tons of teams around the league. Not tons, but there's teams around the league that have more than 2 guys. 3 guys making $10 million, right? Not so much 3, but 2.
Right.
So if you were to go down that avenue, you trade Marner eventually, trade Nylander eventually, I don't think
fill out your roster a little bit more.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think the top 2 centers is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Malkin and Crosby in Pittsburgh. I think what was a Kopitar and Carter when LA were winning the Cups. Krejci, Bergeron. You need those top 2. If the money could be a little better, of course. But I don't think people sometimes act like these are contracts that can't be moved, like the Patty Marleau one. Yeah. If you're going to move them, and you're also going to get great players in return.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not necessarily...
I brought up something like that where Danault hasn't been signed yet by the Habs. And I personally think Danault is a core piece for the Montreal Canadiens. They need to get him locked up long term, even if eventually Suzuki and Kotkaniemi overtake him. Because eventually when they do, Danault's a very tradable contract.
Who was
Teams
Pittsburgh's
will line up.
Third line center when they won their first cup?
Yeah.
Jordan Staal.
Yeah, so I see what you mean there. Now, the one thing that, looking at the Leafs cap outlook kind of long term, dude, your whole top 6 are unrestricted free agents in 4 or 5 years.
That's the thing. And at that point, if you win a cup,
Yeah.
you win a cup.
Well, are they a cup contender right
Well,
now?
that's what I'm saying. But if
Yeah.
6 years, if you don't win a cup and these guys leave, are people really going to be mad? You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
underachieved.
Yeah.
They didn't. It's expectation was the Stanley Cup, and they get these guys and
Yeah.
draft them and all put them in lineup. So if they don't win a cup in 6 years,
Yeah, the fans will be like clamoring for a rebuild, and that's what they'll get because I don't know what
well, a
you do.
rebuild,
And,
retool.
right.
I mean, at that, I
Some
would
of them will
hope,
stay. You would assume
yeah.
some of them will stay.
And if it's worst case scenario, I would hope you would trade them off,
Yeah.
opposed to losing for nothing.
Especially Tavares.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Part 2 has already been filmed and edited. It will be released on the YouTube channel on Thursday. Of course, if you like these videos from the Scotian Canadian channel, hit the subscribe button, the like button, and of course the bell for notifications. And you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Scotian Canadian. Cheers, guys.